What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Ben and Walker Movie Show. I'm your co-host, Ben Davis, joined by my other co-host, Walker Holt, and we're excited to have a conversation with you about one of our favorite things in the world, and we talk about it daily, and we think about it daily. It's ancient Rome.
Yeah, that's
How,
definitely inspires a big part of our life.
it really does. I mean, we talk about it
It's
all the
pretty
time.
amazing. This movie kind of makes me not a deep dive, but it made me Google a few things, talk to ChatGPT a little bit about Rome.
I
It's
talked to my
pretty
brother about
unbelievable.
Rome. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild. Anyway, how are you doing, Walker? We haven't been on here since Sleepy Hollow. We were supposed to do another Halloween show, but things happened. My dog decided to evacuate his entire body. So
Just pretty much just that, evacuating my body for the night. I Things are good. It's Thanksgiving week when we're recording this Thursday.
mhm.
Very excited about that. I'm sure we remember from last year's episode. We like to cook for 15 people for just the two of us.
As you
Last year
should. It's Thanksgiving.
I was on a deep spiral of weight gain last year, and I was dreading Thanksgiving. Well, not really dreading it, but I was like, this is just going to push me over the edge. I feel better about myself this year, but I'm still going to push myself over the edge for this meal. But we're excited.
As you should. It's the
Holiday season.
holidays. But,
I'm really excited for the day
yeah.
after Thanksgiving to do a little Christmas shopping and
Yeah.
put up some Christmas lights this weekend.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm going to be traveling down to Ohio for Thanksgiving, and then I'm gonna watch. I'm excited for Friday for sure, but that Saturday you got the Ohio State Michigan game, man. Go Buckeyes! That's
There
what
you
I'm
go.
excited for, and I'm watching it in Ohio with my father-in-law, so it'll be pretty cool time. I love this time of year, but yeah, it's been a minute. The movie we were supposed to cover, Walker, was a movie that you hadn't seen, and you've finally
Yeah.
seen it. And I'm sure we'll cover it on the podcast someday. But I gotta know, Walker. What's your take on The Crow?
Trash. No, I'm just kidding. It was
How
much
you?
better than
Get
I
out.
expected. It's much better than I expected to be. I had never seen it. I'm from Wilmington. It's infamously shot in Wilmington and tragically shot in Wilmington with Brandon Lee, and
Yeah.
which is kind of a topical subject that I'm sure we would have maybe touched on if we had gotten deep about it. But it's so I was looking for Wilmington stuff, but it was pretty much shot at Screen Gems, all on set for the most part. So I didn't get to see a lot
Yeah.
of Leo moments where I pointed at the um, stuff like I like to do in
Yep.
Wilmington movies. But it was good. I visually and stylistically, I started off the movie not knowing what to expect and not loving it, and the more I watched it, the more I started to respect and appreciate it. And there was definitely some like badass parts.
Okay.
Uh,
So I didn't overhype it for you. I didn't ruin it for you.
no.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
It was
Okay.
appropriately
Okay.
hyped. Yeah, I'm glad I saw it. Probably see it again. Still haven't seen the new one. Have not heard good things, but
It's not bad. Like I didn't think it was particularly good, but it's not this train wreck. Like if
it was
someone were to
on.
say like
It
it's
was on like kind of a row of anticipated movies for me that did not get a lot of love in the internet sphere between
yeah,
that
and
and
I get
Joker 2 and Megalopolis. That I was really excited about all three of these, and
go
tough
back
kind
to
of
the
run.
club. Yeah. God, I haven't seen that yet. I did see Joker Folio doing not great. I can confidently say, but also not as bad as not as bad as the word on the street would lend you to believe. It's just not good.
Yeah.
I didn't
I haven't
think
seen
so
any of
anyway.
them yet, so I need to. I couldn't. Too busy to and too negatively reviewed. Not that I base everything on that, but it certainly could make a difference when I'm busy, whether or not I'm going to take the time to go to the theater or not. Um,
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah,
see.
especially because
Megalopolis,
you're
I feel like
so
their release
busy.
schedule. Francis Ford Coppola, he's being such a stubborn ass about it. Like I don't know where it's even going to get distributed on streaming. Stars. Is that where they're going to put it? That makes a lot of sense. Stars.
Probably.
So,
I would imagine.
Both of those subscribers can watch it.
God, so harsh. Yeah, I don't have stars. I will see Megalopolis, but it's going to be one of those movies that like I'm going to have to watch with somebody. It's not going to be like the movie we're going to talk about today, which is an all-time great. But before we get into that, as always, guys, if this is your first time being here with us today, welcome. We're pleased to have you, and be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Give us a follow over on our socials at Ben and Walker Movie Show so you can stay up to date with all the latest content that we have for you guys. And yeah, just in case I forget to mention it in this show, if there's something that we say in the show that you want to comment on or you like or dislike, be sure to let us know in the comment section down below. And I think Spotify also has comments now that you can leave on every episode. So please do that. That's always fun to sift through. But as the title of today's episode would suggest, we are going to discuss one of the greatest films of all time, Gladiator, which currently has a sequel out in theaters right now. I'm sure Walker and I we've both seen it, so I'm pretty sure we'll get to it. Gladiator is directed by Ridley Scott and stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, Derek Jacobi, Jaimin Hansu, love that name, and cool. Richard Harris.
That guy.
If you aren't familiar, he's awesome. He's that guy. He's in a lot of stuff, and he's always good. If you aren't familiar with Gladiator, why are you even listening to this? Go watch Gladiator. But the plot synopsis reads like such according to Google. Set in Roman times, that time that we often think about, Walker. The story of a once powerful general forced to become a common gladiator. The emperor's son is enraged when he is passed over as heir in favor of the father's favorite general. He kills his father and arranges the murder of the general's family. And the general is sold into slavery to be trained as a gladiator, but his subsequent popularity in the arena threatens the throne. Walker, this is one of those movies. You mentioned it, movies come up in conversations all the time when I'm in a group because people know that I have this show, we have this show, we talk about movies. This is always one of those movies that gets brought up. It feels like with everybody. I've never heard of anyone who hasn't seen it, doesn't have an opinion on it, doesn't enjoy it to some degree. This feels like one of those universal movies that appeals to a wide range of people. So why do you think Gladiator is like that? Why do you think it's endured all these years? I mean, it hasn't been all, I'm making it sound much longer. The movie came out in 2000. It's 24 years old. It's 24 years old. But it's not like terribly old, but it's like one of these movies that still feels very, very, very relevant. It gets brought up so much. So what do you think that is?
Man, well, if you want to know someone that doesn't enjoy it, I can introduce you to her. She's in the living room right now.
No, really?
She doesn't like it. Well, yeah, she doesn't want to. It's not her bag at all. But I'm sure she'd like it if she gave it. She also hasn't seen it. She hasn't seen it. She just hates
okay.
it.
Well,
why do I think it's endured? What's badass? I think the strength of this movie, though, is the screenplay. I think the screenplay is tight. I mean, there's a few parts of it that are slightly convenient. That's okay. But for the most part, the motivation's there for me. The story is there for me. There's weight behind the story, which is quite possibly, maybe not, but it's very important, and it works very well in this movie. And then when they build out with the incredible performances, the incredible direction, the incredible dialogue and script, the VFX that are ambitious but not too far, it ages very well in regards to visuals. I think it looks,
I completely agree.
I think it looks as good as the second one. Maybe better.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, it's but I think it's just the tight classic screenplay. I think it's the story, and then the fact that it is spread out by Oscar caliber performances and direction and visuals and sound and score. You make it all of a sudden. You take a great script and you add, A+ silver service around it, then it's going to be an all time.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, man. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head with something that you said. It's the tight screenplay. This movie, and we'll get into it a little bit with the fun facts, it did not have a completed screenplay as they were shooting it. And I think sometimes that can lead to a mess, but other times it can lead to greatness because because you're on such a time crunch and you have to roll. It doesn't really allow for wiggle room and too much time. You have to like really hyper focus and zero in. And I think maybe that is what helped contribute to the tightness of the script. Mm-hmm. And I think that the tightness of the script also helped audiences cling to the story, a wide audience, because it's very simple. And it's always what I say, the best movies, the movies that endure for all time, are the ones that have simple stories that are elevated by great direction and great acting. It's a not a overly complex story, but it's one that has complex performances. And I think those are the movies that endure over time. And I think you're right with that. Like, yeah, that's why this movie has the kind of appeal that it does. I've mentioned on this podcast before several times. One thing that I used to do when I was sick when I was a kid is I would sit at home and I would watch movies all day, and I would always do the double feature of The Patriot and Gladiator with my dad. It's always those two. My dad, this is one of his favorite movies, and we watched it even when I wasn't sick, But like we watched it all the time. All the time. This is one of those movies that was always on TNT.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good
it's a great one. Speaking of great ones, Ridley Scott. We have covered two of his classics recently with this and Alien.
Well, I was gonna say, good segue. You talked about some of the best movies are the simplest movies, mm-hmm. and I revered mm-hmm. Alien. And I think if you go back and watch that episode, I think the word I said the most was simple. I mean, mm-hmm. It's a simple movie, and it obviously tracks that it's the same fella behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about all-time Ridley Scott movies, I would say, I mean, for me, it's going to come down to those two, Gladiator and Alien, both simple scripts that are elevated by direction and performances. I'm probably going to give Gladiator the edge. I think I took Alien first on our Ridley Scott draft some time ago, but I think I'm going to take Gladiator.
Yeah, I think this is his best movie.
Yeah.
This is his best movie. I mean, you look at his filmography, though, and he's someone who gets this reputation for being hit and miss, but I think he can be. But when you look at his movies here, like The Duelist, great movie.
I haven't seen a lot of his stuff.
Alien, great movie. Blade Runner has 3 different versions that are all really, or 4 different 5, 6, 7, 8 versions. I don't know how many versions there are, but they're all pretty good for mm-hmm. different reasons. I prefer the final cut, but that's a great movie. Legend, weird movie, but very good. Thelma and Louise, G.I. Jane, Gladiator, Hannibal, Black Hawk Down, Matchstick Men, Kingdom of Heaven. He is especially later in life, has become a prolific. Matchstick Men is really good, but he's become a very prolific filmmaker. And the thing about him is, the thing that makes him such a strong filmmaker is the way that he's able to tell a story visually. Even if the movies aren't good, they're visually interesting. I mean, look at
I mean, he is. I mean, a thing I say about James Cameron a lot is he's able to take these wide angle shots and tell this really great story inside, like of scope, and I think Ridley Scott's got a lot of that in him too, especially in these this franchise. I think he can.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
can. And he can do the same thing intimately up close and. I mean, he just has a good. And this,
Great eye.
I'm sure we'll get into it more and more, but there's a bunch of interesting choices in this that are. I don't know. I think they're definitely interesting, and I think I like them. But I could see me not liking them, just out of I don't know. We'll get into it, but there's some choices in like visually specifically that are beautiful and interesting, and I don't know, maybe catch me by surprise when I'm watching.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. He's always interesting. I mean, look at Napoleon. Not a very good movie, but it's an interesting movie and incredibly well shot and beautifully made.
Yeah,
House of Gucci, a movie that I actually really like,
I liked it alright
but
too.
all the performances are going for it, man. Um, he always does something interesting in his movies visually that I find appealing. And when I sit here and I'm looking at his filmography, it's like, wow, this is a great filmography. But the one that stands above all of them, I think, is Gladiator. I think Gladiator is his best movie, this is a filmmaker that's done a lot of really good stuff. So that is saying something. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I'm inclined to put Gladiator at number one. Um, Speaking of great performances, Russell Crowe in this movie, is this one of the greatest performances ever?
I think you have to say, yeah. I mean, if we're talking top, I don't know what the
Yeah.
number would be, top 100 performances or something like that. I think it's certainly on that list. Um, I don't know if it comes up in my. I mean, yes, I don't want to take anything away from it. I don't want to speak negatively on it because it's an incredible performance, and we're going to get into a few things with scenes and moments that deserve a call out from him, and I think he's this is my favorite performance of Russell Crowe's, and I like Russell Crowe in a lot of things. I liked him in Nice Guy. I mean, I like him in a lot of things, but this I think is my favorite performance of his. I certainly think it's on a list somewhere of best performances out there.
Yeah, I this is a very it's a performance of subtlety
Mm-hmm.
because there's not I mean, he has a lot of really great lines in the movie, that's for sure. But it's not this very big boastful performance like Joaquin Phoenix in this movie. It's very great performance too, and it's own right. But his performance in this movie is like it's almost like watching like Michael Jordan in his prime. Just the greatest ever. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what this performance is. It's so subtle. It's the things that he does with his face, these little moments, and it's all here. And that to me is what like that's why I like Adam Driver so much as an actor. He's someone that can tell a story with his face. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to have as many lines. He doesn't have to tell you how he's feeling so that you can engage with him. He is showing you by his face the way that it might move, the subtle differences in his vocal inflections on words and stuff like that when he says it. But when he like the little subtle things that he's able to do with his face is just it's phenomenal. And it's quite simply one of the greatest performances ever because it's so subtle.
Yep. Yeah, I could. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and there's certain scenes that I'm excited to call out when we get there.
Oh, for
That it
sure.
really shine.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Um, and this is a more a loaded question that I kind of wanted to bring up because I know we always talk about when do we see this movie? How do we feel? How do we feel compared to how did we view it then compared to how we feel about it now?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted to kind of talk about something a little different here. If Gladiator came out today, this one, not the second one, this one, would it win Best Picture, or is this like kind of a silly question to ask? Like, duh, no brainer, it would. What do you think?
Well, I certainly think it has the merit to win Best Picture, if that's the question. If the question is more about how the Academy,
It's more
like
about
what,
how the Academy would view
yeah,
it
um,
because it's interesting. because when you look at movies, and I understand this is kind of a leading question, but like
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the movies in the 90s, with the exception of one, maybe two, all those are really big populist movies.
Yeah,
Once you
Titanic.
get to Gladiator, yeah, once you get to Forrest Gump,
Mm-hmm.
um, Dances with Wolves, Silence of the Lambs, like
Yeah,
bigger movies. Um,
Shakespeare in Love.
once you,
I mean, English Patient's
yeah,
pretty big.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's the maybe the exception of one. They're all bigger movies, but once you get to like 2000, there's like a
Mm-hmm.
pivot because you have this one, and we'll get to how much money it made worldwide. I believe it made. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and I'll bring it up here. It made $460 million worldwide, which is huge, especially for 2000. That's big.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a pivot once you get to the early 2000s, with the exception of like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, in this movie. There's not a lot of, and The Departed. There's not a lot of really huge movies. And then you get to the 2010s, and it's even less.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, but there's
There tends to
definitely
be
a shift just in
they
the
pivot.
industry to yeah. I mean, and if you take the 2010s and compare it to the 90s or the 2020s and compare it to the 90s, it's I mean that it's just clear as day that big budget big studios their risk tolerance is lower and they want to so like and I think that's why like a lot of these smaller films shine at the Academy because they have less while they have less budget and they have less which means less budget and that means less like marketing and less promotion and things like that, so it seems to be unheard of, but they also have less leashes, probably longer leashes that they can be a little more creative, take a little bit bigger risks, show you something you haven't seen before, which is exciting to see around this season, and I'm glad they get their attention and stuff. But this seems to be the question every year when we get to this point. I mean, like lately with like Top Gun Maverick and Avatar and Dune, some really high, or Oppenheimer, really high
Oppenheimer
quality, also
is the
big
only
movie.
one
Yeah.
that I could think of since really 2010 that is like one Best Picture that is also a very big movie. Like, yeah, it was almost $1 billion film. And I'm not saying like, oh, they got nominated. That's great, but I think that that's where we've got now. Is it made a lot of money? Oh yeah, it'll get nominated, but it won't win. We're going to give it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
But then the further away we get from years, we look back on those movies that did win Best Picture, and it's like almost like a armchair quarterback situation where most people are like, well, maybe this should have won. And I understand the Academy is like a body of people. They're not a monolith. There are some upsets. Look at Green Book in 2018 that won Best Picture. But
Green Book. Won't get on this long, but Green Book and what's the other one? Crash.
yeah,
They tend to just get shit on constantly, and
all the
I think it's
time.
just because I think both of those movies are great movies. Maybe they're not the best
Yeah.
picture of the year, but I think both of those movies are excellent movies. And it's like it's like the curse of something that happens, like an upset. Maybe not always, but if a bad
Well,
upset, if
Moonlight's
Brokeback
an
loses,
upset that yeah, Moonlight's an upset that a lot of people really love.
sure.
Because that beat La La Land, which when that movie came out, I remember people loved it, and then there seemed to be this big turn against it, like right up at the Academy Awards ceremony. But it's weird to me because like I think Gladiator is a movie that would be nominated for Best Picture today and would probably still win. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, it wouldn't win today because they don't let movies like this win. There are exceptions, but my point here is that it seems to me the Academy has really pivoted toward we will nominate bigger films, but they don't win. Unless of course it's like Oppenheimer, where it's like seen as a crowning achievement of one of our better filmmakers working, and everyone kind of, it's like almost a Leo moment of everyone coming together to celebrate Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
Totally deserved, by the way. I'm not saying, no, that's the only reason he got it. No, that's not. Oppenheimer's a great movie. Like,
sure.
or, yeah.
This was his chance. I mean, this was the closest thing, like, to be in, like, the Academy's flavor, though, in his career, to be able to give him the honor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like Interstellar, which a lot of people look at being his best movie, or The Dark Knight. We're not going to give it to him for those.
Sure.
We're not even going to nominate The Dark Knight. And the next year, there's so much outrage, we had to expand to 10 possible nominations. And now we have certifiably 10. Like, it has to be 10. But that, again, I just wanted to have this conversation to see, like, do we think it would win Best Picture? I think we're both in agreement that it probably would, but I don't think it would be as much a lock.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a lock at all. I'm not even 100% sure if I think it would win, but I definitely think it would be nominated, and I think it'd be in the conversation. I think it'd be treated similarly to, like, Dune.
Dune, or something like Barbie, or like Avatar, where it's like, oh yeah, this is a big movie, we're going to celebrate it, but yeah, you're not going to win.
Spoken about in respect, but I don't even know if it would take down a Nora or whatever else might win these
Which
years.
I haven't seen yet. I really want to see. Yeah. But let's get on here to the Rotten Tomato score. Walker, the Rotten Tomato score for Gladiator sits at 80%, with the consensus being, while not everyone will be entertained by Gladiator's glum revenge story, how dare you people? Russell Crowe thunderously wins the crowd with a star-making turn that provides Ridley Scott's opulent resurrection of Rome its bruised heart. Famously, I believe Roger Ebert did not like this movie, which is one of his worst takes.
80%. I'm considerably higher. I had this up in the
this is
pretty high elite. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably at 95 for this movie. I mean, which is like the line for best of the best for me. I mean, this one's an all timer for me.
This is like fucking 99.
I also,
like
worth mentioning, I've only seen this movie about 3 times.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I saw this movie when I was young, like at some point before I had even an ounce to be able to like appreciate it, and just thought it was like cool, but didn't remember the details. I didn't know the performances were good or anything, just thought it was cool and sweet, and then knew it was good. So just always, like, in my head, knew it was a great movie and assumed I liked it, and then rewatched it a few years ago. I mean, and realized it was great, and then rewatched it for this and Gladiator 2, and pushed it even further. I mean, this is when I really started to appreciate all the moving parts and how well they fit together in this pretty seamless and simple way.
Yeah, for me, this movie is insanely high. Like, 80 is laughable. Like, this is an 80's it's a good score. It's a really good score, but that's how great this movie is. To me, I would have this this is like 99. This movie's great. This movie's an all-time great movie. And I've, much like you, I watched this when I was really young. I watched this. I'll never forget. My dad wanted to see this in theaters really badly, and for whatever reason, we missed it. And so when it came out, we went to Blockbuster and rented it. And what's so funny is I remember this being one of the first times that my oldest sister, Jessica, babysat us. Me, my brother, and my other older sister. And because my parents left to do something. I forget what it was. And me, my brother, Chris, and my sister, Holly, we all sat down in the living room and we watched this, and we were dead silent the entire time. That's how you know it's good. we were dead silent the entire time.
Yeah.
And we absolutely loved it. And then when my dad got home, he found out we watched Gladiator without him, and he's like, "Come on now," you know. And so we watched it with him. It was good, but yeah, like I'll never forget the first time watching it because it was so impactful. I was so glued in. It's one of the more adult movies I saw at that age too. Like I had seen a couple at this point, but like this is like a pretty hard. I would say hard R for the violence, but there's not really anything else in here that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll never forget that first time I watched it, and it's been ingrained in me ever since. I've seen it so many times, and it just, I hadn't seen it for a couple years, and rewatched it for this pod, rewatched it for the second movie that just came out, and it still blew me away. Still blew me away. I hadn't seen it in a while, and then you watch it, and you're like, man, I'm watching artists compete at their very, very best across the board. Performances, visuals, music, Hans Zimmer score. Oh my god, it's so good. It's all so good. So yeah, this movie's like it's a 99 for sure.
Oh yeah.
But let's get into some fun facts here, Walker. Because the behind the scenes story of this movie is fascinating. There's so many cool little details. Russell Crowe later admitted that he initially felt unworthy of all the praise and the Oscar for Best Actor that he got for this movie. After seeing a completed movie, he felt it was a director's film and that the Oscar should have gone to director Sir Ridley Scott instead.
I mean, I think that's the perfect thing to say. I don't think he's like completely wrong. I mean, I think he's got a good point, but I don't think he should sell himself short. He has a great performance in it.
No. Yeah, this is an all-time great performance. All-time great performance. And we'll get to the Oscar nominations a little bit later in these fun facts. We won't cover them right now because there's a fun little list of stuff. Oliver Reed died 3 weeks before principal photography ended because Proximo was considered a key character. A clause in the movie's insurance contract would have allowed the filmmakers to reshoot all of Reed's scenes with another actor at the insurer's expense, which is about $25 million. However, most of the actors and crew were exhausted from the punishing schedule. And Sir Ridley Scott did not want to cut Reed from the movie. The script was rewritten, as it was several times, and a body double and CGI were used to give Reed's character a plausible resolution. I'm glad that they stuck with it.
Nice.
This is Proximo's it's a really cool character and an excellent performance too.
Yeah. Deep character, pretty complex character too. I mean, I can't help but make comparisons to the new movie, but it was or vice versa, I guess. But it was yeah, some gray in him that was well written and performed.
Yeah, agreed. Although Commodus was initially favored, this is real life. Although Commodus was initially favored by Roman people in real life, he lost that status through dramatic acts of megalomania. He is often considered the initiator of the fall of Rome. During his reign, he incorporated his name into many common terms, such as the term for money and the people. Eventually, the citizens and the Senate had enough of his rules, and he was poisoned. And when he vomited out the poison, he was strangled. Afterwards, the Senate returned the language to what it had been before Commodus, and the many statues of himself he had put up were taken down. Pretty wild stuff.
It's crazy. Joaquin Phoenix nails it.
Oh, God, he's also
he reminds me of Joffrey.
Just a little shit in this movie, man. Just a shit. He's such a good actor, but like this, he's so good in this. Like, again, this is one of my dad's favorite movies. This was one of his favorite movies. My dad hated him no matter the movie. No matter the movie. It could be Signs. I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy. It could be ladder 49, and he's like, no, I don't like that guy. No, I don't like that guy. This is how good he was in this movie. It's so funny. I think of the year 2000, the two movies, The Patriot. It's a great movie. I love it. And this, uh, Jason Isaac, and then Joaquin Phoenix, two of my favorite villains ever, and incredibly well performed. And you hate them. You hate them so much.
Yeah,
yeah. They're both incredible performances in this. But the opening battle scene was filmed in Bourne Woods, Surrey, England. The Royal Forestry Commission had originally cited the area for deforestation, so Sir Ridley Scott eagerly offered them his facilities to burn the woods to the ground. The commission happily accepted. They finished filming this sequence in 20 days.
that's cool. Interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool, and it looks awesome. It looks awesome. Mel Gibson was offered the lead role. Speaking of The Patriot, was offered the lead role and turned it down. At 43, he felt he was too old to play Maximus. Russell Crowe was 35 at the time of filming, which isn't a huge age gap, but I get why. And also, Mel Gibson's a great actor. Like personal stuff aside with him, I think he's a really talented filmmaker and director or an actor.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he would have done as well in this, and I'm glad he did The Patriot instead.
Yeah, I think he's better in that. I think 10 years beforehand he could have been perfect for this, maybe. And I mean, or maybe 8 years before that when he was there. I mean, he had just done Lethal Weapon 4 too, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
Lethal Weapon 4 also, and in that the whole premise in that movie is like now he's too old for this shit.
Yeah, they're too old for this shit. Yeah. And it's a little too similar to Braveheart too, which is also another like Oscar-winning film, Best Picture, Best Director, big movie in the '90s, Best Picture.
Yeah.
Won it for the year 1995. It won in 1996. I hate that they do that. Whenever you look it up, what won Best Picture in 1996? And it's like, oh, Braveheart. Wait, no, that came out in '95, so it won for 90. I hate that. I hate it so much. But yeah, I think we're in agreement on that. Crowd scenes in the Coliseum used real-life extras, digital extras, and 400 cardboard cutouts of spectators. It's also really interesting that they only built the bottom half of the Coliseum. Everything else is digital.
Yeah. The crowd is interesting. The crowd is probably one of the few things about the movie that I guess was noticeable would be my word. It reminded me of Phantom Menace a lot. Like something about the scenes going into the Coliseum reminded me of the pod racing.
It's because it's just like Phantom Menace, where they built everything head height and anything above was visual, right?
Yeah,
visual effect.
Whoa! Like it reminds me of like a video game or something. Like
the random crowd character doing like this.
Yeah.
It's not terribly noticeable. We'll get to something that is very noticeable.
That's nitpicky.
Yeah. Over the course of the gladiatorial scenes, Russell Crowe had lost a feeling in his right forefingers for 2 years after a sword fight, aggravated an Achilles tendon injury, broke a foot bone, cracked a hip bone, and popped a few bicep tendons out of their socket. So not a easy shoot for him.
God, that's rough.
I mean, that would be the end of an NFL football player's year.
Yeah.
He would be an injured reserve for the rest of the year. Not Russell Crowe. He had to fight for it. No pun intended. That's insane. That hurts. When I hear pop a few bicep tendons out of the socket, my arm hurts. I don't know if it was just because it was arm day or what, but like it makes my arm hurt.
Yeah.
The movie started shooting without a locked screenplay in place. According to Russell Crowe, the initial draft was so bad that when he was approached for the lead in the film, not even the producer wanted to send him a copy, afraid that he wouldn't respond to it. Crowe was instead urged to meet with director Sir Ridley Scott first. Unbeknownst to the producer, Crowe had already obtained a copy of the script and disliked it, but was won over by Scott's take on the project, as well as countless rewrites.
That's crazy, considering the praise I've given it. This whole story. I mean,
well, you read the behind the scenes. This movie is a miracle. The fact that this movie exists and is as good as it is a miracle, because there was initially several drafts of the script that there's details out there that aren't great, but they were able to, like, through rewrites and several people's different inputs and stuff like that, create a really good story. And they all really hyper focused on making it a really good story, and they shot the movie in chronological order too, so that allowed probably for them to rewrite, not have to go back and shoot things that they had already shot before. And it was just, even though it was chaotic, they were shooting in order. I imagine that might have made it a little bit easier. I'm not sure. I wasn't there. It's a minor miracle that this movie's as good as it is. I added this in because I thought it was cool. Lou Ferrigno was originally cast as Tigress of Gaul, but was replaced during production by Seven Ol Thorson, who had been
lobbing. You don't know, Lou Ferrigno is most well known for playing Doug and Carrie Heffernan's neighbor in The King of Queens, and
also The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that too.
That too. Yeah. Also, one of the greatest bodybuilders ever. Yeah. Really ahead of his time, man. Look up his stuff and the way that he processed stuff with his bodybuilding. He was genius. But we've already gone over this. The total worldwide gross of this movie was $460 million on a budget of $103 million. So it was a big hit. This movie is credited with sparking a revival for the big historical epic. And the years after its release, we have been given movies like Troy, King Arthur, Alexander, 300. There's King Leonidas right there. If you can see him, you barely see him. Noah, Kingdom of Heaven, Robin Hood, and Exodus: Gods and Kings. The last three having been directed by Ridley Scott. Two of these additional starred Russell Crowe, including Noah and Robin Hood. So yeah, he had a couple of these, like Kingdom of Heaven. The theatrical edition's not great, but that director's cut is incredible. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's...
Well, here's, if you want to know a little further, if you want a little further insight into my taste of movies, I've seen 20 minutes of this list. Ever. I've not seen any of these movies except for about 20 minutes of 300, and I was like, and turned it off.
What?
Hell yeah. I've seen 20 minutes of 300 before I had to turn it off, and I haven't seen any of the other movies.
Okay, first off, watch 300. It's good. It's really good.
It's very contrasted and slow-mo, and
it's like everything you're against. And it doesn't have enough John Travolta. So Troy, you could probably skip. That's a guilty pleasure for me, but most people don't.
Troy's the one I would want to watch. That's Brad Pitt, right?
It's Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom, Diane Kruger. Got a couple other big names in it that are really good actors. But the movie itself it's fine, but it's not great. You have King Arthur, not great. Alexander, awful. 300, fantastic. Noah, not great. Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut is great. Robin Hood, Exodus: Gods and Kings, no thank you.
Okay, so we got 300.
You're not missing much. So 300 and Kingdom of Heaven are the movies that you should watch. Troy, again, I like that movie. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. but most people do not like that movie. So I cannot, in all good consciousness, let recommend those movies to you because I know your taste, and none of these have John Travolta or Grease dancing. So I don't think you'll appreciate them. Gladiator was nominated for 12 Oscars. It won, I believe, 5 of those. Let me look here. So it was nominated for Best Visual Effects. It won Best Sound. It won Best Original Score. It didn't win. What? All right, we're gonna have to look into that. Best Film Editing, it didn't win. Best Costume Design, it won. Cinematography, it lost. Art Direction, didn't win. Best Original Screenplay, didn't win. David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson were the writers. Best Supporting Actor, Joaquin Phoenix did not win. He was nominated. Best Actor, Russell Crowe. Best Director, nominated, didn't win. And then Best Picture, it did win.
Quite the rap sheet. Still
Quite
some
the
robberies in there.
Yeah, there are. Really, Scott probably should have won. I'm going to look this up. The 2000 Oscars, or it would be 2001 Oscars. Let's see. And see, like, what won, what was nominated, all that stuff. Let's see. All right. So, Best Picture went to Gladiator, Chocolat, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Aaron Brockovich, Traffic. Aaron Brockovich would have been the only one I probably would have given it to out of these. But Gladiator is the clear winner. Best Director went to Steven Soderbergh for Traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The other nominations were Steven Soderbergh was also nominated for Aaron Brock. He was nominated twice for Traffic and for Aaron Brockovich. Stephen Daldry, Billy Elliot, and Ang Lee for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Ridley Scott should have won, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Best Director, or Best Actor, rather, Russell Crowe won over Javier Bardem, Tom Hanks, Ed Harris, and Jeffrey Rush. Tom Hanks would have been the only one for Castaway.
That is a good one. But
yeah, you ran into a buzzsaw there, Tom.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah. Let's see here. Best supporting actor, Benicio del Toro won for Traffic. He beat Jeff Bridges, Willem Dafoe, Albert Finney, and Joaquin Phoenix. Hot take: Joaquin Phoenix should have won. Even though I do love Benicio del Toro in this, he's really good. I want to get to score because that's the thing I'm thinking of right now. That's like killing me. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Tan Dun won over Chocolat, Gladiator, Molina, and The Patriot, which is also a great score. No, Hans Zimmer should have won for Gladiator. It's one of the greatest soundtracks scores ever. So,
yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah. That's really surprising. But yeah, looking at these nominations that it was nominated for and won, I'm glad it won Best Picture, but it should have won for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Score, Best Supporting Actor. It should have gotten those, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. But let's move on here to best scenes and moments. And we have like 20 here, dude. 20. So we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. But I couldn't get it down to 10. It was too hard. It was an
It's a good flick.
impossible. It's a great one. Maximus noticing the bird while preparing for battle.
This is one of those subtle scenes I was
Yeah.
referring to earlier. This is great. I actually saw a video on Instagram of Russell Crowe, like discussing it with him and Ridley Scott, and I think this was kind of like Ridley afterwards, like, we're gonna be fucking great together.
We're gonna be fucking great together, mate. Yeah, it's great because it's again it's that like really intense like prepare for battle face, and then all of a sudden he like notices the bird, and then it flies off, and it's just this slight smile, and then he looks back and gets locked in again, and it's like this is great. This is great. Like the opening battle.
It's awesome. I mean, it's visually great action. It also kind of does a lot of exposition without saying much in terms of his leadership and courage and respect amongst his men. So it really sets the tone for a lot of plot pieces as the movie goes.
Yeah, it's quite terrific and chaotic. Like just so chaotic how like it's like almost they shut down like the shutter speed of the camera, and it just gets so like bizarre. It like slows down everything. Because it feels like it's going at like a slower rate than normal. It just it creates this chaotic atmosphere that is probably what those kind of battles definitely felt like, you know? So yeah, just a tremendous scene, especially that they put it together in 20 days. That's pretty astounding. Marcus Aurelius tells Maximus his plans. Again, this is another performance of subtlety, and it allows you to see the kind of man Maximus is. He doesn't want leadership, and usually it's the people that aren't seeking power, that don't want it, that with all my heart, no. Like
that's a great line. With all my heart, no.
Yeah, I don't want this. Those are always the best leaders, and those are always the best characters to root for. The ones who are pure of heart, good people.
Yeah. It also really shows his sense of duty. I mean, like he's exhausted, and you can tell at this point all he wants to do is go home. But as soon as he says one more thing, he's like, "What can I do for it?" Like, and it's immediately up to attention. And he obviously hates the idea of what he's asking him to do. And at least in the script, he recognizes the duty quite quickly.
Yeah,
regardless of him not wanting to do it. I mean, when he talks to his guy, his little assistant or whatever, he very quickly is like, "This might be something I have to do."
Yeah, we might not return home after all. Yeah, he says something along those lines.
Yeah.
Marcus confronts Commodus about his plan. Just
similar honor, no. Similar sensitivity.
It's definitely a similar sense of duty for sure. No, I think the thing about this scene that is striking is just how it's heartbreaking, but also just incredibly dark and sinister, and such a incredible performance by Joaquin Phoenix and his heartbreak, and he feels betrayed by his father, and it's his father finally telling him like, "I love you. I failed you as a father. Your faults are a son, or because of my faults as a father, I have failed you." And it's still not enough. He wants that power.
It's a beautiful performance of a whiny little bitch.
Yeah. Whiny little shit. God, I hate him. But father, you never loved me. Yeah. Maybe it's because you love your sister, dude. That's kind of kind of fucked up. Even for back then. the frost. Sometimes it makes the blade stick.
Yeah, that's
Just
sick. That's a
one of
cool
the great
scene,
lines. Yeah.
obviously, but that line, I don't know why that's so cool. I don't know why that's such a cool line. It just
The frost. Sometimes it makes the blade stick. It's just the way he says it. It's like, yeah, it's fucking badass. Praetorian. Yeah, it's great. Uh, Maximus races to his family. Obviously, it ends in heartbreak, but the score and him just riding on the horse, trying to get to his family, it's
yeah,
really thrilling. I
yeah.
don't care how many times I watch it. I'm just like, get there in time, get there in time. I know it's not going to happen, but it's like, it has me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, it is a good scene, and it's a good scene like with the heartbreak and seeing their feet and burying them and
Yeah.
everything like that. Yeah, it is a good scene.
And the him going up to the feet and just kissing the feet and
Mhm.
falling down to his knees and the tears in his eyes. And what's great about it is that was a detail that Russell Crowe wanted to do. Ridley Scott was like, "No, you gotta stay back." He's like, "All I got is feet. I don't have a body." And he was like, "Listen, I gotta get up and touch something. Gotta do something. I gotta get to them because I have failed them already. Not approaching them again would be failing them again."
It's probably one of the least subtle parts of his performance. It's
Yeah.
probably like the biggest part of his performance in terms
Mm-hmm.
of scope.
Yeah. Well, that's again, it's the subtlety, the restraint to hold that in and only do it when necessary. And obviously that's a necessary scene to lose your heart to, and um incredible acting once again. Um, the first gladiator battle where they're all
Oh
they're
gosh,
they're
there's
handcuffed
there's so
together.
much of this. There's so many scenes in this that reminded me. Is it Clone Wars or Rebels? Is there like a whole gladiator like spiel in Clone Wars at some point where like
Yeah, but there's also
there?
the episode 2 has the
No, this is the cartoon. I think this has. I feel like there's like a 2 or 3 episode arc where I don't know if it's Anakin. I don't remember, but I know they're like
I'll have to revisit it because there's so much of Clone Wars. There's so many episodes, so many seasons. So I'll have.
and they're like traded via like slave owners somewhere, and they go to these places. And the whole time I was like, oh, they got this from Clone Wars.
uh, um, are you not entertained? Him
Yeah, I
just
mean
taking
that's
out all those guys, and it's the double swords cutting off the head, and then just chunking the sword into the crowd. Are you not entertained? Are you
yeah.
not entertained? Is this not why you're here? God.
So reason it's the most memorable scene of the movie. I think. I mean, I think it's if you ask anybody to quote Gladiator, that's what they're going to say.
Yeah. Uh, the recreation of the Battle of Carthage. Again, just showing his leadership capabilities. Like
Yeah.
he did this spur of the moment. He keeps them all together, and they ultimately win.
Yeah.
As the barbarians, they're playing as the barbarians and win. It's great, which leads into the "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius."
Yes. That's yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me chills just thinking about it. I
What
mean,
is it? It's
it's
what's the full quote? It's like
God. He's like husband to a murdered wife, father to a
yeah,
murdered. I mean, oh my God,
father to a
it's
murdered son, and I will have my vengeance in this
yeah.
life or the next. And it's the quivering of the lip from that little pussy that just makes it so much better. Yeah, it's the like. It's so great. It's so great. Like he's just shedding his pants. It's just awesome. And it gives you chills every time you hear it. And I was watching it by myself downstairs and I was like, fuck, this movie's good. It's like I was ready to go to battle for Maximus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Gets me fired up.
It vexes me. I am terribly vexed.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's a good
Uh,
scene.
God, Joaquin Phoenix is such a little shit in this movie. Um, Maximus versus Tigress. Uh,
Yeah,
great, great battle. It's the knife in the toe gets me every time.
yeah. Just that reminded me. I loved the artwork at the beginning of 2. Did you like it?
Yes, I did.
With
I
the
did.
painting and the opening
Mm-hmm.
credits and that scene. I mean, and it just hits like, I mean, it's almost like a previously on without having to do a previously on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that scene with the axe and the toe was depicted.
yeah,
It's very
it
cool.
was, and it made me again. It just got me. Uh, Commodus tries to goad Maximus into killing him again.
Yeah, I'll shut up.
Maximus has far more restraint than me. He's a better person.
Yeah,
And
and
your
he brings up his
son
wife and kids.
squealed like a
Yeah,
girl when he was hung up, and your wife moaned like a whore. It's just like, like,
hate this
and
guy.
I hate him, and it's the again the subtlety in Russell Crowe's performance of him almost on the verge of tears, holding back how much he wants to just take a life of this person that's right in front of him. You know, it's
Yeah.
again details. Uh, the little bee story.
What?
That's a
I
good
don't
one.
remember.
You don't remember that?
What's that? Remind me.
The little bee story. So it's the story that he that Commodus is telling his sister.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Again, just it puts so much fear in me because it's like, what is he gonna do to why am I forgetting his name? The little boy.
Lucius.
Lucius. Why am I forgetting Lucius is the main character of Gladiator 2. Spoilers. It was all over the trailer. Um yeah.
Yeah.
Uh it just made me terrified for Lucius and for Connie Nelson's character, who I'm also forgetting the name of. Why am I forgetting it?
Lucilla.
Lucilla. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Made me terrified for them. Um, Maximus's escape, very thrilling. Again, I've seen this movie I don't know how many times, but every time I'm hoping he gets out.
Yeah. Yeah, every time me too. Actually, I mean, I haven't seen it nearly as much as you have, but at the end, I mean, I remember how it ends, but
Yeah,
there's still this weird sense of like hope and um excitement
yeah.
when it's going into
Uh, Am I not merciful?
it.
The line, not the scene. The scene. I mean, the scene is good. The scene is good, but it's so creepy and ugh. But that line is really good. Commodus taunts Maximus in the prison when he's hung up.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I had forgotten about that the stabbing, the
Mm-hmm.
wounding. That's well done. It was
Embrace me like a
it
brother.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever he
I
says.
liked that scene a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Maximus versus Commodus. This is why we watch the movie. We want to see this little bitch get bitch slapped, and that's exactly what happens. Every punch he gets to the face, it ain't enough. You know, you
Yeah.
want you want more. But it's just the sheer satisfaction of seeing this guy get his comeuppance is awesome,
Yeah.
and it's a well choreographed fight too.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean,
Um,
yeah, it's well choreographed, especially when they bring like kind of their personality into it. Because while Commodus fights like you'd think Commodus would fight.
um, Maximus goes to see his family.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's nice. What he always wanted. What he wanted from the moment we met him.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a beautiful scene. He was a soldier of Rome. Honor. This is great. The ending, but not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
All right. Um, listen, best scene for me. I'm gonna have to go with Maximus going to see his family. I'm
Yeah,
a sucker for a good ending,
I got
and that
chills thinking about it
score
right
is
now.
wonderful.
I'm gonna go with my name is Maximus, whatever he says. A husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son. I think that's just it gives me the juices flowing when I hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Worst scenes and moments. This is not a bad scene by any stretch of the imagination. It just makes me feel so icky. It's when Commodus makes his sister, like, forces her to lay down, and then he makes her open her mouth. He puts his fingers in her mouth, and then it is his. I
This
was
is
like,
pre Game
ugh,
of Thrones.
so
Yeah,
gross,
it's gross.
so
Just makes him
nasty.
out to be a worse dude.
He's already pretty shitty. Now he's even more shitty. Yeah, he's just not a moral man, you know. Uh, Best performance, Russell Crowe. It's one of the greatest performances of all time, I think.
We've said it a bunch, and that's true. It's subtle. It's big when it needs to be. It's subtle for most of it. It's captivating. It's effective. It's a great performance.
Does this make sense? Award. Did they have gas tanks in Rome?
What are you referring to?
The chariots at one shot, you can
Mm-hmm.
clearly see when it tips over. There is a gas tank
Oh,
underneath.
really? Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
or it's not a
Cool.
gas. It's like a propane something. It's like a propane
Got it.
tank or something like underneath. You can see it. It's
Got
funny
it.
to
That's funny.
to see it. Um, how did Commodus not know Maximus wasn't slain when none of his shoulders showed up back?
Yeah,
It's like a
you would think.
loophole.
I'm chalking it up to, like, honestly, back in those days, you probably just didn't.
Didn't care.
Yeah, they probably got diarrhea and died on the way back. Like, it wasn't like you back in those days. Who knows what's going on?
They got a splinter and got gangrene. Um, yeah, um, yeah. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. It's a little loose, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
They ate bad guacamole. They couldn't stop shitting, and they shit themselves to death. That's what happened. This is more tied into the sequel, but watching this movie now, I don't have this written down. Watching this movie after watching the sequel, I can kind of buy the Lucilla and Maximus and what kind of happened with them in my head canon is that they were lovers, but she left him or did something that broke his heart.
Yeah, I
And
think so
she
too.
and she became pregnant with Lucius, and he moved on and got married and had his own family and did not know.
I agree.
But I
I
suspect
think
he had his suspicions.
I like I like how they present that or don't present that. I like
Yeah.
how there's a little loose. I mean, because there's really not much besides, like, subtle glances and care. The only, I mean, like, the little line about, like, my son's also nearly 8. That kind of, it was. I mean,
Mhm.
like, that's really good writing, I think.
Yeah.
And especially when it leaves like kind of some options. Also, did they film the scene in 2?
Mhm.
Was that filmed where she, like, sends him away, Lucius?
No, that wasn't. No.
That wasn't a deleted scene.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. It looked good.
It did look good. It looked
I
good.
mean, I mean, from not having seen this in, like, even 3 days or 4 days, it was like, um, is that the kid that played Lucius, and is that young Connie Nelson? I mean, like, it looked good.
Yeah, it did. But I in my head canon, I think does my head canon make sense? Can you buy that?
Hmm. I do, but
Yeah,
that's what I think.
yeah, yeah. Because it doesn't make, like, he didn't cheat on his wife. He's still a very honorable man. He didn't do anything like that. He just there was a history to them, in some way, shape, or form. MVP of the movie. Well, we didn't really give an award to Does This Make Sense? Although one is just a gaffe and the other one, whatever. Nothing wins. This movie's perfect. It doesn't have a worse scene. It's perfect. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
MVP. It's Ridley Scott.
I have to agree. I mean, he's this is him at his best, and his average is great, and this is him at his best. So he's it's miraculously shot, and it's a masterpiece.
Agreed. At the end of the day, though, Walker, why would you recommend this movie, and would you recommend the sequel?
It's a great story. It's a great story. I mean, it's which people love stories. It's a good story. It's a tight story. There's weight to it. We've talked about it, and people would enjoy it regardless. But the fact that the stunning VFX that hold up 25 years later, 24 years later, the performances top to bottom are phenomenal. I mean, we've talked a lot about Russell Crowe and a little bit about Joaquin Phoenix, but there's Jaimin Hanzo. I mean, there's a whole list of Oliver Reed. There's a lot of really, really good performances in this. Everyone shows up to work. The stunt choreography is great. The fighting choreography, the VFX are great. The story's great. The direction's great. The ancient Rome Colosseum costume design's unreal. The score is fantastic. It's an epic movie with a great story. So I think anyone could enjoy it if you're not anti violence or something like that makes you turn away from it. Then it's you know what I mean when I say anti. I mean just like if it makes you squeamish or something. But it great. The sequel, yeah, I had a blast. See it in theaters, biggest screen you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great movie. Don't compare it to the first one. Don't do that. You're talking. I mean,
you're doing it a disservice.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It's not trying to be the first one. It's its own film. It's within the franchise, and it's a great companion. It honors the first one, pays homage, continues the story, doesn't disrespect it, doesn't cheapen the first one. No, it's not as good as one of the best movies ever made. It's not, unfortunately. It's still great. It's a fun theater experience. They take it up a notch. With some great performance. I mean, Denzel Washington is nuts in this movie.
Dude,
Denzel Washington is nuts.
There's a scene that involves a head. There's a scene that involves a head, and he's doing something. It's great. It's like great.
When they're just gabbing with the wine, like more wine, and then she comes in, he's like, it's just like behind her. Look at it, it's so funny. Honestly, we talked earlier about Russell Crowe. The subtlety. I mean, Denzel has some larger. I mean, he's got a little bit bigger scope when he's performing and kind of steals the room, but not always. When he's watching from the sidelines or from the Coliseum fights, his eyes are telling big stories a lot of the time. I mean, he's glancing back and forth. You could tell he's working it. He's scheming. You can tell by his conversations that he's got something up without overdoing it. Great movie, great action, great performances, great experience. Go see it in theaters.
Yeah, I will say this: this is one of the greatest movies of all time, Gladiator. So yeah, you should absolutely watch it. The sequel itself is a good companion piece. I think it's really good. I think there is a 3-hour version that is great. I think the movie could have used a little bit more cushion at the beginning to kind of flesh things out a bit more, because the first half really flies by and there's a lot more plot in it. It's a little bit more convoluted, but once you get to about the middle part of the movie, it really starts to sing. You already said Denzel Washington crushed it. He did. The battle sequences are epic and awesome. There are some shoddy VFX work, but I mean, to me, VFX things, it's like it stands out if you don't care about the story, but I cared about the story, so it didn't stand out as much, but I did notice it. I do wish Paul Mescal was given a little bit more to do with like emotionally at the beginning, but he does especially toward the end, really get some stuff to do that I really appreciated. But the last 2 to 3 minutes, there is something that happens in this movie, and for very personal reasons to me, dude, I was sobbing at the end. It got me. I was like, oh, okay. This is like this movie's special for that last 2 to 3 minutes for me personally, and it might not happen to every individual that watches the movie. This movie, the first one, just meant a lot to me because of how I watch it all the time with my dad. That's one of the reasons. And then the sequel does something that's really special, I think, at the end, without spoiling anything or giving anything away. Yeah, I would recommend the sequel. If we were reviewing it, it's a must see. Yeah.
Well,
take us to Elysium, Walker.
Well, that does it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're hearing us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thanks for watching. If you're catching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. What did you think of Gladiator? Have you seen Gladiator 2? Please go see it. What was your favorite part? Who was your favorite performance? Who's the MVP of each of these movies? But for now, this has been Ben and Walker, and we'll see you next time.